Good evening and welcome to an edition of Inside Government, a show brought to you by Cayuga Community College and shown on Spectrum, Verizon Fios, as well as ARMA, the Auburn Regional Media Access, and played on Win 89.1, the college's radio station, on Saturday mornings. We are delighted to have in the studio the first of 3 state officials who will be here over the next week to talk about what's going on in Albany by giving us an update. Assemblyman John Lemondes, who was reelected overwhelmingly this past November to a third 2-year term. He represents the City of Auburn as well as parts of Cayuga and Onondaga counties. We're going to talk about Kathy Hochul's budget and what she's proposed. But more importantly, there's a lot going on in Auburn right now, especially with the corrections strike. We're going to talk about that and some other items as well as some viewer questions. Welcome back.
Thank you.
And congratulations on your reelection.
Thank you.
Glad it's over?
Yes.
Yeah. Ready to move on.
Yep.
So let's dive right in because 30 minutes, as you know, goes real quickly. The governor has come up with a $252 billion budget, which is $19 billion higher than last year, which was $6 billion higher than the year before. On your first overall review, before we get into the specifics of good and bad, what do you think of the budget?
No different than what I've said to you in previous interviews. I think it's unsustainable. I just think that, again, nobody would manage their own personal checkbook this way. I think the increases are unsustainable. And I think when you couple that with the knowledge of our outmigration, it's going to increasingly put a greater burden on those in the state still. What I don't have yet, we expect to have it in the next couple weeks, is the definitive 2024 outmigration numbers. So 2023, 22, and 21, we were the highest outmigrating state in the nation. We expect that to be the same for 24, but I don't have that number yet.
But what was remarkable to me on this is that last year it was a $6 billion increase. Now it's threefold on top of that.
Yeah.
So what is just on the 19 alone, do you know what's that coming from?
There are all kinds of things. I'll give you an example. As we were discussing the Power Up New York program, $100 million for electric power for shovel-ready sites. I think it's a good idea, but when I asked the question in the economic development hearing yesterday, is this green power or is it reliable, uninterruptible fossil fuel power? And the answer I got was all of the above. And so when you look at where the money is going, I personally think a lot of it is misguided. And I think we could do better. I think our budget should be less. And I think in order to maintain it at a sustainable level, it can't keep increasing while we're losing businesses and people.
So let's take it in parts. First part is you are here about 2 weeks before you were here last year, so it's earlier in the process than you were here last time or last budget conversation. Where is the legislature in your process?
So I think based on yesterday's activities, I'm betting we're going to be late again.
So they don't know what yesterday's activities were.
Oh, so the budget hearings are still ongoing, and we are still. There was another one today. I participated in one yesterday, and in those you participate in you can go to any of them, but you participate in the ones with which you are either a ranker on a committee or a committee member. And so at the conclusion of all of the hearings, the conclusion of all the lobbying, budget, of course, goal of April 1st.
It's about 32 days from now.
Yeah.
If I'm doing my math correctly.
We haven't made it the last 2 times. I don't expect to this time.
It
would be great. It would be good to.
Is April 1st vital?
I don't think it's vital. It's not going.
Previous governor thought it was vital.
Well, I think his reasoning for that was for the sanctity of everybody involved, so that there was no stress in not knowing when the budget was going to be done, what was going to be delivered, and when. And I think it's just good fiscal policy to be able to have your budget done on time when you say you're going to.
So what do you like in the budget? Is there anything you like in the budget?
There are a lot of things that I like in the budget. I think that a lot of the economic development activity is good. I think we have to genuinely generate more business in New York. And that was the bulk of the essence of my discourse yesterday in the hearing. And so that money for various startups, for the shovel-ready power sites, I think that sends a message to companies that might look to locate elsewhere. That, hey, maybe New York will be more friendly. Maybe New York does have sites that are ready for us to come into. And one second, let me just bring Micron into this. Like the Micron project, I think, as has been said many times, I think we discussed it too. I don't know who coined it originally, but that's the biggest project of the greatest importance probably since the Erie Canal.
So on the Micron, I want to go back to this economic development hearing for a second, but on the Micron issue, there has been some question in the last 4 weeks as to whether federal guarantees would still be there with the new administration. Are you concerned about that? Or is this project so far along that it's, I hate to use a banking term, too big to fail? Because I know you're on the banking committee.
No, I'm not, because I think they'll do the right thing.
Okay.
I think I have faith that they'll do the right thing, and just so you know the depth of where they've gone. They looked at and stopped near and dear to the 126th Assembly District in New York State. Again, agriculture, our #1 industry statewide, our #1 industry locally. They stopped all of the federal NRCS equip grants that were going to farms everywhere, just to, and these were ones that were in process, just to look at them to make sure, okay, should we go through with this or not? And I think, from what I am told, this just occurred yesterday, so I haven't had time to check everything myself yet. The reason that they lifted that was because these were all legal contracts executed legally with all parties concerned, the government and private businesses, and so they allow them to go forward.
Do you have a concern? I mean, there's a lot coming out of Washington I want to say every hour. I don't want to say every day. I want to say every hour.
Yeah.
Do you have concerns from a budgetary point of view that there are things that will trickle down to New York as programs are stopped or cut or put on hold? And I obviously yesterday I think there was an announcement that departments have to come up with a layoff plan. Do you worry about the trickle down for the budget process for New York?
I think there will be some trickle down that's unavoidable, no matter what.
So how does New York prepare for that?
Well, I don't think you can, because we don't know yet, right? We don't. I don't know if that occurs.
Well, some of it's going to go into the courts, clearly.
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
So let's go back. I want to go back to economic development yesterday, because you went to that hearing. How does New York stack up economic development-wise? I'm sure you heard a lot of good things. From ESD, economic development. How's New York do?
So I heard a lot of good things from ESD, but when I asked the question about just the climate for small business, for example, I think if you listen to ESD's responses, not just to my questions, but to everybody's questions, you would think that we were doing great and everything was wonderful. We weren't hemorrhaging population. Businesses were fighting to get available real estate here. But the Thumbtack Small Business Friendliness Survey, for example, gave New York an F, for business friendliness for small business, because it's just so hard to conduct business here. Chief Executive ranked New York just in business climate overall, 49th.
So I want to cover the whole budget because there's other things that are important to your district here. One of those is aid incentives for municipalities. So where does the budget deal with AIM funding for municipalities? I know there was a bump, I think, last year. and it may be maintained this year? Is that, or is it increased?
I don't know where it's going to, it's premature to say where anything is going to be.
No, but what she is proposed, what the governor's proposed at this stage.
I think there's a slight increase. We're having a conference about this shortly. I mean, internally. So
The other piece for municipalities is CHIPS funding.
Yeah.
For everybody in your district, and that, I don't think those reimbursement numbers have come in since 1987 as an increase.
Right.
So nobody in this studio, with the exception of maybe you, I, and maybe, and I'm going to say that in the control room, were born in 1987.
That's right.
So this, you most likely drive the arterial through the city of Auburn because you represent this area. It looks like Anzio Beach, giving it a military bearing here. Is CHIPS funding ever going to get restored?
One would think so, and one would hope. And so if you, I'm glad you brought that up because, for example, I held a press conference about this last year locally in the district, and the mainstream press wouldn't even come and cover it. They wouldn't even show up to cover it. And so we are going to hold another one. We're working out the date on that to address this, and it's to be determined.
School aid. Not that you've ever gotten a school board member ever to come to your office or send you a letter. How are the districts making out? I know Auburn has an increase.
Yeah.
Is it sufficient enough? And I know what is generally occurs in election years is there's an increase by the legislature. But right now, what does it look like? Because you have some districts in your district who are complaining that the increases were not sufficient.
Right. So here's my take on this. We talk about this every year as if it's a new problem and new challenge. If we wanted to fix this, we could.
You're talking about foundation aid.
I'm talking about the foundation aid.
And so this is not being fixed in this particular budget.
No.
Which I guess goes to a bigger issue. I know Governor Patterson started this before, and then it went to Governor Cuomo, who was, ran the table on this, is putting policy in the budget. Is there a lot of policy in this budget proposal?
I think there's policy in
whether it's for schools or anybody else.
In every budget.
Okay.
And so, for example, one thing we want to see come to the end is the improvement on the prosecutorial process of discovery. So that's something everybody's behind. I
and
think
we're going to
universally.
get to those issues in a second. I want to just ask two more questions on the budget. So what are you telling districts who say they did not get the increase they should have gotten? Because they're all coming to you.
Right. Let me go back to my answer, my thought on this. We can fix this if we want to. We can fix the formula if we choose to.
Because we're using 2-decade-old.
I think it's older than that. It's at least 20 years. Yeah.
At least 20 years of numbers that don't make sense.
And so, and I think the reason we haven't fixed it is because we don't want to. And the reason we don't want to is because some districts have advantage with it the way it is.
So there will be winners and losers in any reform.
There will be winners and losers based on the wealth ratio, the way it's used.
So if you did it correctly, Auburn would most likely be a winner.
I would think so. Yeah.
But some downstate districts on the island would be losing.
That's right. And maybe not even downstate districts. Maybe some here.
Skaneateles or where?
Fayetteville, Manlius, for example.
Do you think there will be additions to? It's traditional.
Yep.
Do you think the school aid will increase with this budget?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
I don't want. Go ahead.
Can we finish the thought on the foundation aid?
Sure, absolutely.
So I want to finish back to the statement that I made about we could fix this if we wanted to, and I think if the study that was done by the Rockefeller Group, if they had more time, I think they did a great job in the 7 months that they had, and I think Dr. Timms if they would let him fix this, it could be fixed. And I think
He's been in the studio to argue about this for years.
right. And so we can fix this. We don't want it fixed. Is what I think where a lot of people are. So we are impeding this artificially.
I want to switch gears, totally switch gears to what's going on State Street and in other areas across the state. So we have a corrections strike right now.
Yep.
I want to break it up into pieces. We're going to talk about the HALT Act because that's its own part of this interwoven Gordian knot. Main issues right now, as far as you see it, with what's going on with the corrections officers.
So the main issue, from my perspective, what it boils down to is to simplify something that's extremely difficult and stressful, working conditions. And
so being asked to overtime, being asked for longer.
not just asked, mandated.
Well, no mandate, but also doing extra shifts, things of that nature. Correct.
Correct. Okay. And then the inability to really protect themselves while on the job. And let's face it, I did a statement the other day, and I said, if you think you're tired at the end of your 8-hour office day job where nobody's thinking about hurting you, try doing that after. Imagine what you would feel like after 16 hours and 24 hours.
So let's take this in bits and pieces because it's very complex and it's not. A lot of it's interwoven. But at this stage, how much is overtime costing the state of New York because you don't have enough corrections officers? Do we have a number on that?
There is. I don't know it off the top of my head. But the other number too is the what the National Guard is going to cost us.
And are you supportive of the role the National Guard is playing right now, as a former member?
In the way the governor can use the Guard, how she needs to use them, but I think what she's done is wrong.
How so?
I think that all of this was avoidable if leadership had been acted and implemented and used all along. I think this is a problem of her own making.
All right, so let's take pieces again.
Sure.
We're taking little bits and pieces right here. One issue, it seems, is Department of Corrections is grossly understaffed. There are not enough people filling jobs.
Grossly. I mean, significantly.
So you know this for police departments, you know this for sheriff's departments, you know this for the troopers. It is tough to get people to go into these fields now. What does New York have to do to change to get people to apply for these jobs?
Sure. Several things. First of all, acknowledge and offer them the respect that they deserve. Acknowledge the difficulty of the job and be honest and upfront. Give them the tools and resources to actually do the job. And then on top of that, commensurate pay and benefits for a really dangerous job.
So I was surprised they don't have a 20, like fire and police in many communities, they don't have a 20-year retirement?
I've been a huge advocate for this.
So,
and it drives me crazy because they go into harm's way every day.
But usually that's something part of collective bargaining, where if somebody wants a 20-year retirement, obviously the union would give something up in event. That has not come up before as a bargaining discussion?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, I've heard it from several of us have advocated for a 20-year retirement for several years, but we have not been able to get the other side to join us in that.
I'm stunned about the next three questions I'm going to ask you real quick.
Yep.
We don't do contraband screening?
No, they have the machine, and I think the way the rule is right here at home in Auburn is that the inmate can say, no, I don't want to submit to it.
We don't do full body scans. If I want to fly from here to New York.
That's right. You don't have an option.
I don't have an option.
That's right.
We don't do full body scans.
No.
All right. So a question on process here.
Yeah.
Is it legal for them to strike?
I
didn't say if it's right or wrong. I said, is it legal for them to strike?
I'm going to say what they're doing is demonstrating.
It does sound like they're going to be penalized, though, for demonstrating.
And I don't think that they should.
If they do, by the way, doesn't that create more of an overtime crisis?
Of course.
Okay.
But look at their families are failing. They are being put in an untenable position that nobody would want to be put in, and that they shouldn't be put in. And if for example, we just talked about agriculture. Let me use agriculture as an example. If any farm subjected an H-2A migrant laborer to any of the things that our corrections officers and police officers are subjected to every day, the Department of Labor would be there shutting that business down in a nanosecond.
So all the things that I've mentioned so far can most likely be taken care of by the governor or by the Department of Corrections.
Yes.
When I say easily, they can fix those issues without legislative approval, for the most part.
Yeah.
Where the hiccup comes here is the HALT Act, the Humane Alternatives to Long-Term Solitary Confinement Act. That is not how that comes out as an acronym. For those who don't know what the HALT Act, 20 seconds, tell us what HALT means.
So HALT was a means of bounding the way that inmates could be treated in solitary confinement. So this led to there was this notion that they were being mistreated, grossly mistreated, and this significantly reduced the amount of time that they could be put in solitary confinement. And the biggest challenge is, if you'll allow me,
please,
is that a lot of inmates are using that as a way to escape the general population.
So this became a law in 2021.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you did not support it in 2021?
No.
Okay.
I didn't support any of them.
Okay. So others have asked that it either be revoked or modified. What is your preference, by the way?
I think it needs, I think it needs to be scrapped. And I think in general, not in isolation, the officers within the prison, within our prison system, within the whole corrections community, need to be able to protect themselves meaningfully, as well as in doing so, they can keep the inmate population safe as well. You know, there are nearly 1,800 incidents.
Right.
Calendar year 24 alone.
56% increase.
Yeah.
So I want to ask one last question on this, because I want to get to two other items dealing with corrections. The Senate GOP, your counterparts in the other house, has asked the governor to repeal this by executive order. Explain to me, can she do that? If it's a state law, it needs to go through a state legislative process, doesn't it? You would not support her doing that arbitrarily with any other law. Can she? She's being asked to do this by executive order. Can she?
Emergency powers.
Okay. All right.
So the actual request was emergency powers.
So not helping all this situation is what occurred in Marcy with Robert Brooks.
Yep.
What has your conference been told about the death of Mr. Brooks in December? Or have you not been told anything?
I don't know enough about him personally to say one way or another. Don't forget, though, we have deaths in our prison system statewide frequently.
Right. Do you think it was appropriate for the corrections officers to be charged with murder, though?
No.
How about her firing them? Once that video became viral, she ended up firing more than the 6, but was that appropriate for a governor to do that?
This makes me think of the gal right here in Auburn that was almost, could have been killed, attacked recently, several months ago, and what happened to those inmates? You know, I don't think anything. So my point in bringing that up, I'm not trying to ignore, your question, but it strikes me as with what has been taken away from the corrections officers in such a difficult, tenuous job, that they are nearly, if not completely, unable to protect themselves.
Last corrections question right now, because I want to get to a viewer question.
Yeah.
She's also there's also a proposal to close prisons. Am I correct? Is that
Correct.
Does that
5 more.
complicate this even more?
Of course it does. I don't know who is telling her that, where that logic is coming from.
So you're not supportive of any
No,
more? Okay.
not at all. Because the percentage isn't going down. The percentage has decreased because they're not charging people with crimes.
Percentage of
People becoming inmates held accountable for their crimes and actually put in
that number
prison.
is not going down.
I'm saying they're saying
okay.
citing that the reason we can close the prisons is because it's been decreasing.
Okay. Do you think any of those will be closed in the budget?
I don't know what she's going to do. I.
So local, closer to home,
Yeah.
and that seat on Tuesday was Mayor Genentino. He said that he's going to ask again for the local hotel tax. He's communicated, I believe, to your office, Senator May's. He's got a response from Senator May. Are you going to support the home rule request?
He has not communicated with my office. He hasn't called me. I have not decided yet.
Okay.
But I will probably do the same thing I did last year. And if you remember, I
You
put
had
out
public meetings.
So gave the community the opportunity to email me, stop in, not just me, my staff as well. So email, snail mail, physical visit to the office, and then a public meeting.
So Wheatsport and Skaneateles, which you've supported in the past,
Yep.
have done that. They're up for renewal this year. Will you do the same thing with them?
I haven't decided, probably not. Don't
Why are
forget the
they
circumstances. Circumstances are very different for each of them.
Why so?
First of all, Wheatsport was a result of redistricting. That work, that decision, the process had already been done under Assemblyman Mankalo. They all wanted it, and by the time the election and the redistricting was complete, my name just happened to fall on it as a pro forma.
How about Skaneateles?
Skaneateles, Skaneateles, I was surprised. Skaneateles was nearly unanimous in their desire for it. But Republicans, Democrats alike. I was really surprised.
Left field question.
Sure.
You got a new chief of staff, an Albernian.
I do.
Who is it?
I'm not telling.
You're not telling.
My secret weapon.
Your secret weapon.
Yeah.
Who do you got?
Taylor Kilmer.
And he just joined you when?
He joined a few months ago, actually.
He's an Auburn grad?
Yes, yeah.
And an Army guy. Any through stream there?
Yeah. So I'm glad to have a fellow soldier on my staff. He knows how I think. He knows what I mean when I'm talking, and he's a very hard worker and a local guy. So that's great for everybody. Everybody wins with him being on this team.
Great. Before we talked,
Yep.
You're going to come back in April, whether there's a budget
Yep.
adopted or not. We didn't talk about bottle bill, conference agenda, and I'm sure there will be a couple things that come up between now and then.
Of course.
But our guest has been Assemblyman John Lemondes, who is representing the City of Auburn and parts of Cayuga County and Onondaga County for the third term in a row. On Tuesday, we will be here with Legislative Chair Jonathan Anna, who will give us a county update. Jeff Ludwig of the Seward House will also be talking to us on a separate show about what's going on with the Seward House. And then we'll have our next two members of the legislature. Assembly Minority Leader Will Barkley will be in that seat to answer some questions, as well as Senator Rachel May, two separate interviews on Thursday. We'll be back the following week on the 11th with Jeff Dykert, the city manager, and Assistant City Manager Jennifer Haynes, who will be here to give a city update, talk about their transition over there, as well as representatives of the YMCA who will be talking about summer camp, their annual dinner, and a lot of other things that are going on at the local Y. In the coming weeks, we will have the Assemblyman back, we'll have the Mayor back, but we'll also have a number of people, including representatives from the County Health Department here as we go through the rest of the semester. If you have questions for us or you would like to suggest a guest that we bring in, you can contact us at COZGUY mytho@aol.com. I'm Guy Cosentino for Cayuga Community College. I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank the Assemblyman again for being with us today for this interview. And we'll see you back in the studio on Tuesday. Have a good weekend.